Hey everybody, it's Craft Blend's book review with another book review. I'm Heather and this is Daniel. Hi everybody, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Daniel, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, hon.
Nice.
Thanks for asking.
So today's topic is going to be, well, the book we're going to review is going to be A Little Life. Now, I would like to start off with a moment of silence for my coffee.
Oh my god, I love it.
My dog got to it and tore up his face, which feels a little fitting, but also kind of horrible.
I can't with you.
So yeah. Uh Anyways, that's my existence right now. But yeah, so I guess we'll go ahead and get started. Daniel, do you want to give us a little synopsis of the story?
Will do. So the fake synopsis that everybody gets is that four college friends and their trials and tribulations through life and how they hold together through friendships of many years. No, girl. This is the Jude show. The people around the enigmatic Jude. uh,
Very,
but
very
yes,
accurate. Yes, it is Jude's story and the people around him.
yes.
So I guess we'll do ratings at the end because I know we both have a little bit of like an opinion on our ratings. But in the interim, I will just say I gave it 4 stars. How many stars did you give it?
I gave it five.
Okay. So we'll dive a little more into that towards the end. So I guess the first thing that we can maybe talk about is the writing style, right? Because I think that was like the biggest impact of the book is the writing style. I think that I don't know how to pronounce her name. Do you?
I will try. It's Hanya Yanagihara.
Okay. Yeah, that's kind of what I assumed as
Hanya
well. Hanya
Yanagihara.
Yanagihara. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
will definitely say that she has a lot of positives when it comes to her writing style. Uh, let's talk a little bit because you had told me that there were some negative thoughts on her writing style, and since we both liked it, what were the negatives that you had heard?
The negatives I heard from others or the negative
No, yeah,
I
from others, from others.
oh, got it. It's that it's, too much of like the prose is too much of describing things and then not like when things could be condensed. Yes. And then there's the sensationalism
Okay,
of the writing sometimes with a little bit too on the grotesque and violent side.
okay.
But
And then I know
yes,
you had
which
said something about the stream of consciousness style of her
yes, that
writing.
that that is what yeah.
That what about it though? I can't remember what you had said. Like, what were the
Oh, there
negative
we go.
thoughts surrounding it?
The negative thoughts that people could have is that also she goes back and forth in time,
Okay.
and then within a character's head it's stream of consciousness of like when they go into one point it could relate to another point, bring it back to the original point, but stir off a little bit of the side quest to bring it back into the main quest. So that the best way I could describe it in that way.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I would say some of those I would argue are valid criticisms, but then for the most part, I would say that for me at least, it was very immersive. I could the way she described everything, I could literally see most things that would happen. Sometimes things I didn't want to see, I could see very clearly. What about you?
Yeah, me overall I do like it. I do really enjoy it, especially when we do get into a character's head. especially if you could relate to those inner thoughts of like anxiety or depression or insecurities about yourself, because we all have our individual minds. So when we go and read in a character and how their inner monologue to themselves is, or the way of thinking they go, you feel less alone.
Yeah.
Like, yes, where for me it works. Where it works negatively is in a different genre. So like for me, something I love in contemporary, literary fiction, I may not like in fantasy. Like, with those like TikTok type videos and stuff like that, the bleep bloop bloops went to the like when it's fantasy, if it's too much detail and inner, like I'm like I get lost. But
That's
at least with
hilarious because I'm like the complete opposite for sure.
exactly. So
It's
yeah,
very
so
funny to hear you say that because yeah, in fantasy, get as much detail as you want in there. I'm gonna eat it up. But like
yes,
real
but
life stuff, I'm like, all right, it's
no,
sad.
real
Life
life,
sucks.
it's
Let's get it over with.
yeah, exactly. But for me, it's that inner like gossip girl being raised on that CW show and being like, "Oh yes, give me the drama." Okay, okay, we're gonna edge a little bit. We're gonna give you hints of a backstory, hints of an origin. Ooh, and then we're gonna bring it back. So I like that within a drama realistic standpoint.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's something she did do well was the ability to give you hints without telling you the whole story. So you kind of are at a point while you're reading that you're like, I need to keep reading to know what happens next. And that's
Exactly.
obviously something positive that you would want in a story
Yeah,
to be
and
able to want to keep going.
mhm. And I would tell you that from the very beginning, this book, the best equivalent I could give it to, it feels like 4 to 5 seasons of a TV show in a book. And
It
then
felt
for
like
her to
it.
do that, yeah, for her to for her to do it in 800 pages, but yet we don't falter as in the sense of we don't like we're extremely bored into where we're like we don't want to go back to it. We didn't want to go back to it for different reasons, but that will be a little bit later in our episode. But
Yeah.
yeah, but at least for the
I
writing style, it
yeah.
does grip you. It does grip you.
Yeah, it is gripping, though. Though I will say that there are points where she meanders, and I struggled with some of the descriptions because I felt like there were certain things that she really didn't need to tell us about. Like there were just some scenes where it was just like a lot of describing, a lot of like everybody felt this way and that way, and it does meander sometimes. So I will say that, especially by the end, I'm like, I just want this book to end,
Yes.
and it's
Now,
refusing to.
whether I could only slightly disagree, I could wholeheartedly, like, totally agree with you, especially coming in. That's why I wanted to say that at the beginning with the four friends. And I really thought they were going to focus on and there are character shifts, not to spoil or anything, but like, she should have focused on other characters as well. There was so much emphasis on Jude, and I feel like maybe that does do a little bit of disservice to the book, just with that false, like, you know, four friends in college, let's see about their lives, and you kind of think it another way.
Yeah. I agree. I agree about the friendships because it really was Jude centered. And it just kind of more remarked around how everybody else reacted and treated Jude. And like even in instances where not, like one of the characters, Malcolm, doesn't really describe his relationship with Jude very well because it doesn't seem to be a big
Who's
one.
Malcolm? No, I'm joking.
Even with Malcolm, you get like even worse with him, I think, right? Like you barely get anything from him. So you have four friends. You have Jude, you have Willem, you have JC, is that what his name is?
JB, JB,
JB.
B.
JB, and you have Malcolm. So those are the four friends that apparently they meet in college, and we kind of follow them a little bit through their lives. Supposedly, we were supposed to, but I think more so, if anything, we followed Jude's life and the way he
Jude.
interpreted them.
Yes. Yes. If it were a hierarchy of characters, it's like 75% Jude,
Yeah.
10% Willem, 5% JB, and 2.8% Malcolm. And it was sprinkles of um Harold.
Yeah, other characters basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would say that it's very Jude centered. So I guess
Because
on
it
that,
kind of because
okay,
I guess in the beginning first half, it kind of like you feel like, oh, okay, we're gonna get a deep, beautiful backstory into each character. Oh, you get like, but no, it's Jude's show. Not to say that's a bad or negative thing. It's just that the book, the synopsis and all of that, it I don't know why they did that. I guess
yeah.
maybe it's like a um what's that thing in theater that you like give like not a false hearing, but like a you give like something. But yeah,
Yeah, I know, I don't know the term. But yeah,
yeah, I
no,
don't know.
and I mean, to be honest, it's not so much a bad thing technically, but I would have preferred an actual story about friends and how they live their lives. Because having it just be about Jude, it kind of like, that's what kind of like, I think messed me up with how much I could have liked the story. Um, but anyway, so and speaking of that, I guess we can discuss now the characters. So you have your main character, I feel, is Jude, right? You
Jude,
have
correct.
a he's clearly from the beginning, he's very like he's difficult to kind of read. There's a backstory with him.
Introvert.
Yeah, there's something going on with him that you know is kind of odd, but you're not really sure what it's gonna be yet. And I know that he from the beginning has like body issues, right? Like he suffers from
Disabilities.
pains. Yeah, he's disabled basically. Although I guess at the beginning he like doesn't want to see himself as disabled, so he very rarely is like he's just talking about how he's walking and living his life normally. But throughout the rest, we were getting snippets of how exactly he's hurt and how he's being affected by it. Um, and then you have Willem. You want to talk about him a little bit?
Yes, Willem is the best friend and the most connected with Jude, and he's an actor, and it's well, we could spoil bits, and then the future maybe potential love interest of Jude. So that's Willem. JB is their artist friend. He paints pictures, he follows them around. He's also the rich boy who's privileged but still has problems while the other friends don't necessarily super connect with him. He's the odd one out. Malcolm is our architect,
Yeah.
like of buildings and like kind of design houses and buildings. So, and that's all we get. I feel
There,
so
well, there
bad.
are snippets. Well, okay, they're not really about Malcolm, but there's snippets about him with Jude. So you get like an idea that he is aware that Jude will eventually need to succumb to his disabilities, which he'll basically end up in a wheelchair later in the rest of the book. And I think he's like aware of that before everybody else is, or at least he's acknowledging it before everybody else is. So
Yeah.
that's one thing at least you can say about Malcolm, and is he is a caring friend. Like
No,
he's
he is.
just a
Yes. I
nice
don't want
guy.
it to come up. When I'm doing these little jokes, it's I want
Yeah,
it to
yeah.
come across that she doesn't develop
No,
him
no,
and
of
he's a
course, of
cool
course. That's what
character
I was saying. He's
too.
like
Yeah.
just a nice guy. That's all you really get
Yeah.
about
Yeah, you all really get. You get way more I will say you get way more of Willem and JB than you do of
yeah,
Malcolm.
yeah. There's very little about Malcolm. Um,
Malcolm is like the bookends. Malcolm is like he's mentioned throughout,
yeah,
but like the bigger snippets of Malcolm that we do get, it's the beginning of the book and the
beginning and the end.
ending of the
Yeah.
book, and which is 800 pages. So it's like, you know,
Yeah. So there's other little characters throughout, and then your biggest characters after those guys are Harold and Julia. And Harold and Julia are just a nice couple that end up meeting Jude because he's going to law school, right? And Harold basically befriends him and takes him in eventually as his adopted son. And Harold has, of course, his own story where, he
His
lost
own
a child.
backstory.
Yeah, where
Yes.
he lost a child and everything like that. Before he married Julia. So everybody's got like you get a certain idea of them, but you definitely your more developed characters are Jude and Willem.
Yes. Okay. So within all the stuff, I'm the one who chose this book for our book review. So I want to first apologize to my Heather. I did not expect. Heather has known me for 20 plus years, and she knows I like a good sad book. And I wanted a sad book, and this is known as the saddest book. So I completely regret that. I did. There was one time I called Heather as a hot match, and I was like, Heather, if we don't want to do this for the book club, we could shut this down. Shut this down. This is a deleted scene, but I replaced this with Fourth Wing, and we were gonna do Fourth Wing instead. We could have had sex and dragons instead of this. So the biggest question that I think most of us, and this will lead into everything with the sad book, is, and then I'll coin the phrase. It's because I feel like it's a negative phrase when we say, is it how you call it, torture porn? Meaning, what I like to say instead is it's sensationalized within the, not victimhood, but is it too much of sadness and trauma for the sake of just having that? So that's where the biggest question comes from it. And when we go to our review, our end rating again and stuff like that in our recommendations, that will be further on. But at least for now, I could wholeheartedly say, just, and I will give reasons later, is that I do not recommend this for everybody. I do not. Please read trigger warnings for anything towards this book. So I guess I'll go first with the question of, do I think Hanya sensationalizes things and stuff like that? It's a valid question. We're not gonna. This is no shaming author or anything like that. To me, she doesn't. She doesn't, because these are like realistic characters, and within 800 pages, it's a whole story. It's there's arcs and stuff like that. It is incredibly sad and it is incredibly traumatic. But I do feel like, it is a human character. And then all because a character goes through all of this, we shouldn't delete him if, like, we don't feel happy with the end results, because sometimes with stories we want ribbons and bows and stuff like that. So I feel like it is a disservice. And then does she do a disservice for the character for not giving a happy ending? No, because per se I got a little bit of the lesson of the book, a little life, and there are pockets of happiness. I can say it's just sometimes the trauma does outweigh. So is it a valid critique? It is. It is a valid critique, and I can't like shy away from it. For me, I got the overall arching stuff. I was changed by this book, and I do see things differently. That's why, at least for me, with the 5-star, but we'll get that later. But at least I feel good with this book. But I do have to emphasize that the other side of the coin is totally valid, because there were times, and Heather will testify because me and her went through this whole experience, and then I'll speak for just mine. But I was like, Heather, I need to stop. This made me like hyperventilate. So the TikToks and stuff like that. Not that I thought they were exaggerating, but I'm like, oh, okay, it's sad. Did my stupid ass art. Like, I was like, oh my God. I wanted to give up. I wanted to give up. But with her writing, it cannot be denied. And then secretly and selfishly and all these weird feelings, I still wanted to go back to the story. So there's a testament to that. So yeah, but do I think she sensationalizes? No. I don't think it's torture porn and stuff like that. Now, I call it, if other people say it is, I will preface it with, the other side is also right. This has been the most complex book, and this is going to be the most difficult review because me and Heather, wait till Heather talks too, because she has a whole completely different point of view. I was like, I don't even know how to talk about this. It's like so hard. But at least with all that rambling and all those little pockets you just heard right now, as a reader, you could like have your own thoughts with it. But both sides are right. It is sensationalized and it's not sensationalized.
Yeah. I guess for me, it's funny because I remember you calling me like crying, or you would tell me like, "Oh, this is really hard to deal with," and I just didn't get that. Like, I fully expected to cry. I saw everybody crying, so I was like, "Okay, maybe it's gonna tug at some heartstrings." But more than anything, I found myself frustrated, and I found myself um like it's funny that you say there are pockets of happiness because I think that if you're talking about pockets of happiness, there's like those little fake pockets in the jeans that are very, very tiny.
Ah!
That would resemble the pockets of happiness because this was just tragedy after tragedy after. If it's any kind of porn, it's a tragic porn. Tragedy porn is what I would call it because it was just negative all around. I didn't find anything positive really. The only thing I could claim any positivity on was Harold and Julia, who Harold is absolutely one of my favorite characters. And but I did not find much happiness. I found just constant sadness. Even with the friends that didn't have like as serious of a life as Jude, it's like nobody could be happy. They weren't happy in their relationships. They weren't happy. They're barely happy at their jobs. They had all of these like weird sort of like um existential crises like throughout the whole book, and tragedy just befell them over and over and over again. At a certain point for me, I did get tired of it because I do agree that it is human to have tragedies. It happens every day. You know that in my job, I hear about those kinds of tragedies all the time. But I also don't think that it has to be the way it was in the book. I don't think everybody experiences life that like that. It's again, it's just like every character had something sad happen to them. And
Yeah.
that's just difficult for me to contend with because I like I said, eventually I did get tired of it. I was like, okay, like I don't understand what I'm supposed to be feeling because all I feel is like nothing matters and life sucks. So that's just a matter of my perspective. I will warn though that I am a generally like weird TMI or disclosure. I am generally a depressive person. So things like this do affect me in a way that I don't think it would affect somebody else. More so that it doesn't give me like hope, and I already live without it. And I struggle with
Ah,
books that don't give me any. And I just felt like she didn't have any hope. But I will say, like you were saying, there are pockets and there is a overarching like kind of life lesson at the end. The one lesson that I picked up from the story is that I need to like allow the people in my life to love me. Like it's okay. I am worthy of their love and affection. That I can
exactly.
say is something that definitely is explored and heavily. And she does it well. She explores the the way that you might tell yourself you're not worthy, but how other people perceive you is completely different. And that is, I think, something she did really well. It just was wrapped in this is a very black present wrapping. But overall, like you were saying, you can't, like we talked about this, you can't deny her writing style. I think that she's
You can't.
immersive. She keeps you on your toes. She keeps you wanting to go back. Like I struggle with books that are shorter than this, and I was able to get through this.
Yeah.
So
And we,
this
yes, and we
immersive.
did it in less than a month, bitch.
Exactly. And it was immersive. Now, I will preface that though. I will give a small caveat for myself there. I did skip parts because I did eventually get tired and I would just skim read and I would just be like, okay, sad, 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 let's move on to the next page. Sad, 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 sad. Like that's just how I did it. So there are parts of it that maybe I didn't read fully because I couldn't. If I was gonna get through this book, I needed to start skimming and I am a bit of a block reader, so I could do that without missing important parts of the story. I would, whenever I'd reach a part that is important, I'd slow down and be like, okay, this is something important. But for the most part, like towards the end especially, I did skim it, which helped me finish the book. But aside from that, like it was only towards the end, and you're talking about 800 pages. So at least for the very first like three-quarters of the book, you're like invested. So I think that I mean that's the best thing you can ask, I think, for a book is for you to be invested.
Yes.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
I guess,
I think that it's good for us to see like two different perspectives. And like I said, I can totally see how yours is valid. Just
and
as
I totally,
yeah,
yes, and I see yours. And the funny thing is that me and you could both swap and
yeah.
still be so, because a lot of the things you mentioned, I went through the book too. I this book. One of the first time, like I've like put a book down or thrown it on my bed, and stuff. This is the first book I threw across the room, like physically, really, like not exaggerating, threw across the room. This was books where I'm like, I have to stop, break my rule of like, no, I have to take a break. I have to put my bookmark here. I can't end this chapter. I had to like breathe, meditate, drink water, and I'm like, no, I'm getting way too sad. Where I'm like that hyperventilating sad, where it's like, ooh, it's not a good sad. So I had to like put it down, leave it alone for 2 days, 2 or 3 days, go back to it. It is, I kept telling Heather, to me, because I was going a little bit faster through it, because it got to a moment where I'm like, I need to finish this now before it destroys. It was a roller coaster ride of just like emotions. And but all the things you felt, I felt too, because I started to feel anger as well. It's just like anger, just anger, anger, anger. But the way I could see it, that now hearing your part and also discussing my part, it feels like a modern Greek tragedy,
Mm-hmm.
in where our main character makes so many bad decisions, into where, but the Greek tragedies are within plays and they're much shorter. So this one is like, yeah, but oh my gosh. But I guess the next question I would ask us, and then we're gonna keep this short. So it's like really this question and then like one other one to go into our things, is, because we're not that we're leaning towards negative per se, but what do we think of Jude as a character overall? Because we're scared to even touch Jude. We're scared to touch Jude. So how are your feelings with Jude? I want, if you need some moment, you could collect.
Yeah. No, it's fine. I think the reason we are afraid to touch Jude is because there are people who experience the life that he experienced. It's just reality, like there are sad
There you
stories
go.
involving children and the life that they have and how they grew up and how they were raised and who raised them. It's very real. It happens, I like I said, I work in an industry, well, not an industry. I work with clientele that this happens to. And so it's not so far-fetched to see Jude and how he would react to things and everything like that. The only issue I have with it, with Jude as a character, and this is where it frustrated me, is because, again, since I work with this kind of clientele already, I can see how important it is for them to have something to hold on to. They have something to grip, right? Like a person, someone who gives two fucks about them, they will, like, in general, not all of them, obviously, in general, you will have a child who sees an adult who doesn't mistreat them and they eventually learn to trust again. Now, that's not to say that that happens for all kids. So that's where Jude is kind of like a gray area for me because in the way that she talks about him, there's so much that he has to hold on to that it doesn't like it cannot fathom for me as someone who's never experienced his life how he can't hold on to that, because it's not like he experiences tragedy, yes, at the beginning of his life, but he does eventually move away from it. And he does meet people who genuinely care about him. And that's where Jude's character gets complicated for me. Because while I understand that one, I've never experienced his life, and two, that I don't have to make the choices he makes, and I don't have a disability in such a way that it paralyzes me like that. Um, that's my cat. there there are just so many things that the people around him do for him that I like the people in my life that I love, and I hold value to. I can tell you in my darkest moments, they're who I held on to when I was feeling like I didn't have a reason to keep going. And that to me is where I disconnect from Jude because I don't understand it. Because the only thing that tethered me to this world most of the time was the people that cared about. And the idea of hurting them was enough to affect me. But um but like I said, that makes him a difficult character to kind of place because of that. Because you can't be too mad at him because he grew up fucked up. But there are moments where you're very frustrated with him because you see blessings that are in his life eventually and he can't seem to see them, and that is something that's hard to understand if you're not the type of person he is.
Exactly. Yeah, you hit almost everything like on the nail. It's just, I guess we see it with like in our own privilege with the book and all the tragedies and all of that. It's really the way we feel with Jude and everything is that what the book I think does well is that like everything is not black and white and all stories are different. And with Jude's case, and then this is where you drop off if you really don't want any spoilers at all. Eventually, Jude succumbs to the dark thoughts and he does, commit suicide. And even though it's all present in the book, for some weird reason, I still believed in something else while reading it. And then I understand how like it could it could come off as sad and stuff like and giving up within the story and stuff like that. But like with the black and whiteness thing is it's also like maybe forgiveness for people that have done it. And then it's just truly an understanding that we don't really know what other people go through. We don't. And then that's the one positive I could say about the book is like if you do get that from it, is like some people have tragedy after tragedy after tragedy. So, you know, it's valid. It's really hard to tiptoe with Jude because at the same time it's that human nature of like, why do you have to be all sad at the time? Why do you have to be this? And it's so weird because, you know, us looking in deep within our own sadnesses and our own things, we're Jude's too, to a type of degree, like
Mm-hmm.
are with our own demons and insecurities, and so that's why I relate with the book a lot because there are some thoughts that Jude has that I go through at least 20-30% of it, Now, granted, that's why I tell you that thank God I don't like pain at all. So I would, like with, trigger warning with cutting scenes and stuff like that. Like those scenes, I was like, oh, but yeah. So with Jude, as much as I hated him, I loved him too. And it's just all complex. And that's all I could say within this.
Yeah. No,
So,
absolutely. I think that that's the thing that like you can have both of those feelings and they be true. Which is
yeah.
what she does. Again, that's another thing that she does well. Is she is able to give you the dichotomy of it, the way that things are.
Yeah.
And then I think with Jude especially, there is sort of a love-hate relationship because of people who do commit suicide, right? Like you are both angry that they feel so sad and then also angry that they weren't able to hold on, right? But
Yeah.
it's not ever so much putting blame on them, but just the fact that I think for me especially, just the fact that I feel like sometimes you just like how would I put it? Like at the end of the book, to me, a different ending would have allowed you as a person to hold on to hope. But I just don't feel like it ends like that. And while I get that tragedy is a part of life, holding on to hope is also a part of life. And giving up on that, I feel, is where the struggle lies for me because I don't think that we should give up on hope. I do think that there is hope. I have been in, again, not speaking for Jude and or people like Jude because again, I don't experience the way they do. Like we talked about earlier, I do have a privilege of good things in my life. But again, I've also had moments of heavy darkness, heavy thoughts where I thought I couldn't hold on. And I did because I found something to hold on to. And I feel like, and this just comes from my perspective of how I like to read. My books, I do like them to have happy endings, or at least an ending that gives you hope. And I just feel like that didn't happen for me with A Little Life. If I could
Yeah.
say anything negative about the book, it's just that at the end, I didn't feel like it gave anybody hope. I can see where, when you explain it, where it gave you hope. But for me, the experiences didn't happen that way.
Yeah.
But the other thing, and speaking of what you were talking about, and this is just, again, more trigger warnings, these are heavy topics. But the other thing that I can understand, though, and I think this is a good example of what you're kind of talking about or what you're trying to say, because I feel like you're struggling to kind of word it.
Thank you. Help me. Help me.
I think of it like a patient that is suffering something excruciatingly painful. And you have people who don't believe that they should have the decision to end their own lives. And for me, that's where I can understand it because I do think that a patient who is suffering from pain, from cancer, they just want it to be over. I think they do should have a right to finally be done with the life that they have. If it is no possible way to bring you joy, then yeah, I think that you should be allowed to end it. Assisted I forget what the word is. It's assisted something, but it's when the doctor helps you essentially
Yeah.
pass away earlier than you would have. And it's because you're in a lot of pain. And in this instance, the pain isn't, well, it's partially his body, but it's more so mental. And the mental part is the aspect that is difficult, I think, for people to like understand. Because that's the other side. I can understand letting go early because you're sad. That I can fully understand. I can understand wanting to give up and being like, I can't do this anymore and giving up. I do understand that that happens and I do understand how it happens. I've been there multiple times in my life, but I think that might be more so what you're trying to say is that if you're in so much pain that you can't like find any source of good anymore and you just want relief, that maybe the help there, like a patient who's in pain or whatever, maybe that should
Yeah,
be something that is, it's a very like, it's a very heavy topic of whether or not
it's very,
someone
very heavy.
someone should end their life for whatever reason, if it's heavy enough for them. And then, I mean, again, then you come into the topic of what is heavy. Some things are heavier than other things. And, it's just, it's a very gray area for sure. And
Very gray.
I think that in the most of it, she handles it and expresses things very well. And that's just it for me, is that for me, I didn't feel like there
Yeah.
was hope at the end of it.
Yeah, even though
But
I would give a negative, as in just in the sense with new authors and the new way of doing things, I do feel like she should have put trigger warnings. And then I love, because I did other books. I did a bunch of Valentine books. Most of my books were happy and stuff, but one of them had a love interest that had depression. And the beginning of the book had the trigger warnings listed, and then it had so many links and stuff, articles and websites and phone numbers to go to. And then that's when the sensationalism, I go back and forth in. I keep Every day I switch my mind on it.
it's
I
like that. But I think that's a testament to the story and her writing. It is.
Exactly. So it still matters, and it's within that own in between. So that's where we go to
Yeah.
our last question, is with overall rating and overall recommendation. I wouldn't. It's so weird because I give it a 5. I give it a 5. The writing is excellent. It teleports you. You're in there, and it's like what a. And then for me, 5 stars is within the echium of like books that change you, books that maybe you think, books that live with you for a while, books that you think of the characters even a month after, where the book being about trauma, I feel traumatized by it, and not even being funny about it or hyperbole. Like I'm like, whoa, this book,
It's a lot.
I would. It's a lot. It really, really is a lot.
It's a
So
lot of a
like,
life and not so
oh
much a
my,
little life.
exactly. Oh my God. Like I was thinking, if I was Willem, like if I was an actor, I think I could cry on the spot just thinking about this book. Like I think I've learned
I
like
just
to
find
do
that
the.
so funny because then it makes me wonder if something's wrong with me because everybody cried and I just shed one tear. I just like, what is wrong with
that's
me?
that's that's valid too. That's valid too, because what started to happen on the book, on the ha- book and half of the book, is where I started to not cry anymore. Where I'm like, I was texting you too. I'm like,
Wanted
I'm
to
just
end.
fucking angry. I'm just fucking angry. It's because I guess, like, not that I'm a virgin or anything. Some of these plot lines, I have never, like, the closest that's gone to it was that with this visceral, the word visceral has been A Child Called It, was like the closest that I read in high school, that it's just real. Well, this one's fiction, but it was like real life, like,
Tragedy. Yeah.
trauma. Yeah, exactly. And that one was like, which that one's like a trilogy. I did not know it was a trilogy. But so that's the closest I could give to it, to where, like, yeah, I cannot wholeheartedly recommend, but I could say it's within my it's a great book, and it's within minds that changed my perspective in things. Now, within my top 10, it could be within my top 10, but that's where me and Heather are kind of the same. And then I'm going to use the phrase that everybody hates. I'm in my queer joy era, even though I might be a hypocrite with recommending this. Oh my God. But yeah, so like, happy endings do make me feel better and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. These are warnings for you guys and stuff like that, because sometimes you could see this episode. This is for you, future reader. If you want to read it, do like I did because it was in my TBR for 2 to 3 years. Do not bring another friend to it. I sincerely and utterly apologize to Heather. It's because
Especially one who already deals with the
I know it's because I'm like, Heather's my Daria Goff friend. She likes sadness a little. I
You
was
see, that's
wrong.
funny that you say that because we've known each other for what, like over 20 years now, right?
Over 20.
And like I think that no, I think for real, like in all honesty, transparency, Heather, old Heather, would have ate this up. She would have loved this. But
That's another
like
thing. We're
you,
switching with age.
like you in your queer joy era, I'm just in my joy era. Like I want to be
Yeah, we're in
happy.
our joy era. We're in our joy era. So we
I'm
fucked up.
medicated. I have a job. I'm an adult. I just want to be happy.
Exactly. So yeah, just check the trigger warnings, read up on it, and then you don't have to read it. You don't have to read it. If you're mentally prepared for it and then you want, beautiful writing and stuff like that, also do it in sections. Don't do it all at once. Don't like
I
yeah,
came
because I
into
know it's
this
gonna be
thinking it was going to be about four friends. I left with trauma.
I left with trauma. Exactly. So it is nobody like not that some people can't be exaggerating within, the community, the book community itself, but it is fuerte, which means strong in Spanish. It's fuerte.
Yeah.
It's so beware.
In my rating, I do give it a 4. You know me, I don't give fives out very often because
Yeah.
I'm just
No,
that
but funny, I
annoying.
was between 4 and 5. I was between 4 and 5.
I'm just that
Yeah.
bitch that just doesn't give
Yeah, you were
fives.
like, fuck you, Jude.
Only the best get fives. No, but it is worthy of its 4 in her writing style. Do I recommend it? Absolutely not. Now, the issue, the little caveat there though is if you're anything like me and you watch Criminal Minds, you've already heard some of these stories in Criminal Minds. So some of this stuff might not surprise you. Another thing, if you already work with the disenfranchised, these stories, it's everything you hear on a day-to-day basis. So that's, I think, a little bit of why it didn't affect me so much because I'm already kind of embroiled in that world, you know?
Yeah.
But the reason I don't recommend it is because again, I don't like a book that doesn't end with at least a bit of hope. And to me,
Yeah.
it just didn't. Now, if you like happy endings, don't read this book. If
Yeah.
you are easily triggered by talks of suicide, child abuse, and anything that is like Daniel saying visceral, like speaking, like talking about wounds and things like that,
Yeah.
don't read this book. And then
Mhm.
if you do end up wanting to read it for any reason, I think as as a person who likes to write, there's a lot to learn from her writing style.
Mhm.
She has a way of describing, talking, things like that that do do well, and you could learn a lot from reading this book. That would
Yeah.
be the only your technical writing is where I
There's
would say.
such beautiful, like, there's paragraphs of text. They're just beautiful ass motherfucking quotes.
Yeah, yeah.
Like, whoa.
She has a lot of good stuff in there, and she you could definitely tell that she if she ever if the prizes and awards that she's probably won for her writing is well deserved in my opinion. Like I was telling Daniel, if I say anything negative about her writing, I'm just a hater because I think it's really well done. I think she does a good job. Could she have used it for good? Yes, but whatever. She decided to go this
Yeah.
route, so let her live her life, I guess. But
Yeah.
yeah, I would give it a 4. It's just it's a well done book. You can't like you. There's nothing missing. You get everybody's sad story, and then the only thing maybe is that it really isn't about the 4 friends. It's really just about Jude.
Yeah, it's about Jude, yes. And then there's like with the critiques of, sensationalism and the torture porn of it all. It is a roller coaster of up, 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 up. There was even a section in this book that we didn't this book we could talk about for 7 hours. But there's a section in this book that I'm like, Heather, this is a horror thriller. These like 60 pages, and you know what I'm talking about. Like when we unlock that origin. I'm like, I'm like, we just shifted into a horror thriller. I was not
Yeah.
expecting that.
Yeah, no.
So like,
It has some really, really rough topics. There's
yes,
domestic violence, there's the loss of a child, loss of parents. There's everything. Everything under
yeah,
the sun you're gonna find in this book.
yeah. I
And
really do
and
think
um
it
and
has
yeah,
every
so
trigger warning,
exactly. Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. I think at this point
like at
books
least a
need
good
to come,
90%.
yeah, they need to come with some kind of like rating
Yes.
system
Yes,
for
I'm
books.
starting to think that's too. Now, caveat with everything, we're not talking about banning books. We're not talking about censoring or any of that. But I actually don't mind an ESRB like with video games, rated E for everyone, T for teen,
Yes.
and M for mature. And then movies, PG-13, rated
This would
R.
be S for sick tragedy.
Oh my God. Yes. And
No,
then
I'm
you're
kidding.
if you're
It's
no, and then
it should
totally
come
well,
with
this is
one though.
not yeah, and this is totally adult. Like would I ever I don't even recommend reading this in your 20s.
Yeah, no, not even. And to be honest, there a lot of a lot of their lifetime, the lifetime of the book, a lot of it is in their 30s and 40s. And
Yeah,
so like, yeah, definitely I wouldn't recommend it to anyone maybe under 30.
yeah,
But yeah, no, so I don't recommend it if you are just a person who wants good things to happen. And
yeah,
but I do give it a 4 in her writing style because I can't deny she's a good writer. I feel. I know maybe some people might disagree. Maybe we were talking about there were some negative critiques about her stream of consciousness, but I think she does it so well that I barely noticed
yeah.
that, to be honest. I didn't feel out of place. There was moments where I was like, wait, are we in the past or the present right now? But if you took 2 seconds back, you'd understand where you were.
No, but
So
don't worry. Once we reread it, we'll understand it more. I would never reread this.
I told you, this is it. I don't even know if I can give this to my local thrift store because it's ripped, but I might just dump it at the thrift store and just let someone else deal with it because I don't ever even want to look at it again. And luckily, I don't really, but no.
Yeah. But yeah, oh my God, but this book, we could keep talking about it, guys. And then I even had like a bunch of other questions written down, but it will last so long.
Yeah, next month is going to be the Gilded one, right? Yes,
Yes,
I
Mama, if
have it
this book
here.
ends sad, if this book is sad, no, I'm joking. I kept repeating this book. I was like, Mama, I just want to go to the Gilded ones already. I just want to go to, I want to leave a little life. So I can't wait. I'm actually really, really excited for
Yeah,
it.
I'm excited too. I've heard it's really good, and I'm just excited for it. I think that I haven't heard anything but positive things about it. So definitely excited to start reading this one, and I hope it's a fun read and maybe something a little opposite to February.
Yeah, so we'll be a little bit happier maybe in the next episode, hopefully.
But anyways, that's it for us, guys. Thank you so much for being with us for another book review. Let us know if you end up reading A Little Life. Let us know if we gave you enough of a reason not to read A Little Life, and what you've heard about it and things like that. And yeah, I just want to make sure that even through all of this at the end, I do believe that there's things to hold on to. And if you're feeling that there isn't, I can tell you from my experience that things do eventually get better. There are Our pockets of joy are a lot bigger, and we can make friends, we can make our own families that give us a reason to stick around. And I think that if you give yourself time, if you're questioning whether or not you should or you shouldn't, I think if you give yourself time and you allow yourself to be vulnerable and open up to people, sometimes they'll hurt you, but sometimes they'll surprise you. And you might find someone, a friend, a significant other, whatever have you, that you can say, you know what, I wanna stay here and hang out with them and hold on to that. So I just want to make sure that, if you are feeling any type of way about living your life, that I think that there is good things. I think you can be a good thing in the world if you want it to be. And if you want the world to be better, sometimes it starts with you. The way you handle things, the way you talk to other people, the way you treat other people, that in itself will make things and the world a lot different.
Yeah,
But
well
thank you
said.
so much again. Bye, everybody.